from Marcus and Julie. So let's see how many more, if we'll have enough for the minutes. Why don't I start by reading this introductory piece? And then as people come on, we can call on them.
Sounds good.
Because this eats into our discussion time. So why don't I begin the meeting? This is a preliminary matter. I'm Amelia Klein, member of the Needham Human Rights Committee, and I will be chairing this meeting. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Tina?
Yes.
Sophia?
Yes.
Cynthia?
Here.
Carrie?
Here.
Amelia's here. Belinda?
I don't have headphones.
All right, okay. Ashok
If it would keep people from,
is here. I mean, there he is. Ashok, can you respond? Are you here?
I don't know. He's not muted, but he's not responding.
Can you hear me? He's waving that he's here. Marcus is not
Okay.
here. Did you mention your name, Ashok?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. Something weird.
Here.
Marlene,
Here.
Julie is not going to be present, and Katie.
Here.
Good evening. This open meeting of the Needham Human Rights Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th, 2020, due to the current state of emergency in Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting is a webinar and will allow the public to comment. For this meeting, the Needham Human Rights Committee is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. We are now turning to the first item on the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. Tina is the recorder today. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you are not speaking. Please remember to speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. After members have spoken, the chair will afford public comment as follows. The chair will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, I will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call vote. So now we can begin. And the first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. And thank you, Marlene, for sharing them so quickly in record time, right after the meeting, because several people were not at the meeting. So that was a good way to catch up. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes as is.
Second? Would someone like to second?
I second it.
Any comments or edits or additions to the minutes? Okay, looks like we can vote. Tina,
Yes.
Sophia,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Abstain because I wasn't there.
Jennifer,
Yes.
Carrie,
I also need to abstain. I was not present.
Amelia Klein, yes. Ashok,
Yes.
Marcus is not here. Jared,
Yes.
Bud? Bud on yet? Hasn't joined us yet. Marlene,
Yes.
Julie is not here. And Katie, do you vote? Are you-
No, she doesn't
Don't.
vote.
Okay. All right. The minutes have been approved. Public participation. Do we have anyone in the holding room, Katie? Anyone that wants to join your meeting?
Yes, Dan Matthews has his hand raised. Do you want me to bring him over?
Yes, please.
Hi,
Hi, Dan.
Dan.
Hi, Madam Chairman. Oh, I got to turn my video on here. Okay. That's technology going. All right, here I am.
Hi, Dan.
Green.
Hi.
That's good. Thank you for recognizing me. I wanted to speak to you for a minute if I could, and I say a minute, I hope it'll be not much more than that, about the 40B guidelines. And that's because I've had that as, for the board, as something that I've taken on just to write a draft for further discussion about modifying the town's, that document. And I got the materials from your committee came by me today, and then I watched your meeting. And I wanted to just speak a little bit to clarify, because it seemed to me that may have come to your committee without some context that might have been helpful. And basically, Chapter 40B is a Massachusetts state law. It's been on the books for about 50 years. It provides zoning exemptions under certain circumstances for certain kinds of affordable housing. The document that I sent to you is a first draft of to update the town's existing Chapter 40B guidelines, which were written and approved by a group of committees in 2012. And so it's not a final document. When there was a discussion about what's the deadline for getting this information in, this hasn't even gone to the Board of Selectmen for their initial public discussion at this point. But the materials you sent in are very helpful, but I just wanted to clarify a little bit.
Okay.
As I said, this is a draft to begin discussion. There is no more urgency to this than any of the other work of town government. The thing that has changed that's an element is that Chapter 40B, those exemptions are different for towns that have what are above or below what's called 10% SHI, which stands for Subsidized Housing Inventory. In 2012, the town was below 10%. And receives less, for lack of a better term, favorable treatment under the statute in terms of being able to make controlling decisions about proposed development. A decision that the town made in writing the guidelines was that a lot of towns are very resistant of 40B projects. And if you look around, you'll probably see that, and others try to work constructively with it. The key policy decision in the 2012 guidelines was to confirm that the town is committed to working with the statute to achieve the 10% statutory mark. And the main thing that has changed since then is that the town has achieved that 10%. So that then raises the question, well, now that we're at that level, what is where are we going in terms of this? Because when you're at 10%, the town can literally, the select board can literally say, we're not having any more 40B projects built here. But as you noted in your comments to us, we haven't taken that course. We looked at, and in fact, we approved one recently. So the question is, are we going to take how should we revise these to bring them forward? And you, Amelia, in the comments, this is like it all happened a few minutes ago because I just watched it a few minutes ago. You were talking about the areas that were cited, that those are not the only areas that people are invited to comment on. Well, those were I was working on the draft saying some of these areas have to be changed because the town has done things that are different than that. In 2012, there were some specific ideas of the stakeholders about, well, what would be the best places in town to construct affordable housing? Are there some priority areas? If thinking has changed about that, this is a good time for people to talk about that. So this is a ways to go. And another piece of this that's important in any discussion of 40B is that 40B is not a complete affordable housing policy, and the guidelines are not a complete affordable housing policy. There are a lot of different areas, and a few that we might talk about at a later time have to do with, we did some rezoning to encourage apartment building downtown about 15 years ago, but almost none have been built. Why hasn't that happened? Has something else been done? The Needham Housing Authority has 330 units, mostly built 40 or more years ago, that really could use with code upgrades and so on. And on their property, which was much less densely developed back in the day, there's room to add more. Well, what is the town's thinking and approach to that issue? Those are all outside of 40B and involve different state agencies and in even federal funding in the case of the Housing Authority. So there's a lot out there, but I think the main thing I wanted to say is it is not a rush order. We really do want the select board really wants to have this, and it should be a consultative process townwide. There are going to be public hearings. People will have an opportunity to have input. If there are anything in the guidelines is fair game for comment, not just those few areas that I listed. Those are just ones that it's like the document doesn't add up if you don't say what you want to do about those. But there are others that you could look at. The whole process has got a ways to go, and we invite everyone's participation in it. I hope that gives you a little clarification.
Yes, thank you. And I haven't shared this yet, but Kate did respond immediately with an email indicating some of the things that you have mentioned.
Okay, that's good, because this went out to a lot of stakeholder groups in town, and there was a number of them had never seen the 2012 document, which is on the town website. You can kind of Google it and find it. And you really need that as the starting point to see where this is going. If you've got that information, that's great. But I guess I saw your committee working really hard at it on the last meeting, and I got the memo today, and I just said I really ought to try to clarify this, if that helps.
Will there be a hearing at a future meeting?
Yeah, I think, and now this is the part where I had to, like your disclaimer at the beginning, this is mine. I'm one member of the select board. I have no more authority than any other citizen here, but in terms of what a process might look like for this, in 40B projects, within the town government. The key agents, the key responding agencies are the select board because of the 10% standard, and the ZBA, which has jurisdiction over all the permitting. But there are many other stakeholder groups that are involved, included, that need to be heard if they want to have input, including, for example, the planning board, the school department, the Human Rights Committee, and yes, you had mentioned Nuwari in your memo, and the Design Review Committee, and all the ones that are listed on the front page of that study. So the idea, it makes a lot of sense to have a consultative process and get everybody's input before any decisions are made. And then, because our town government is somewhat decentralized, it actually makes sense to get a sign off from the principal stakeholders before you say this is the town policy, rather than have the select board say this is it and we're going on. Because if it's not satisfactory to the schools or the planners or the ZBA, it's not going to work, and it's not going to have the public confidence that it needs. So the short answer to your question is you can expect I think a process that will go on to have some public participation and go on for a while, because we've received and are expected to receive more comments from the planning board, particularly putting some detail to some of the questions about, well, let's describe what the process should look like for an applicant under the new condition of being over 10%. So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done, and we'll make sure that you've shown that you're interested, and Katie is here, so you will be kept informed.
Does anyone have any comments or questions for Dan?
I don't know if it's necessarily for Dan, but it's making me think that this would be a good time to try to come up with some kind of educational programming for the community about what 40B is, what other kinds of housing initiatives kind of, fall under the umbrella of trying to increase affordable housing in Needham aside from the 40B. I don't know if that's something that, Dan, if when you all are having your discussions about it in the select board, does everybody kind of already know all of that stuff going on? And would it be useful, since there are so many people that are interested in this right now, for us to think about trying to bring in some education to the community about what all these terms mean?
The short answer is yes, and the next question is how to proceed, given all the priorities and everything else that people are trying to do. 40B is one part of housing and development policy where the selectmen have a special role. In general, it's the planning board that is the lead agency for development, land use planning, things that are within the town. The zoning bylaw is under their supervision. And of course, the housing authority, which is not part of the town government formally, but it's a separate, really, state agency with local elected, with a locally elected board. They have jurisdiction over the public housing units that are within town. So it's a little, your question is an excellent one. The answer is yes, the public should know. The jurisdictions and authorities are a little complicated, and so to try to just move the process in a way that everybody that wants to be involved and have a say in it has an opportunity to understand how it works and what the choices are, and to have a say before those choices are made, the answer is yes. How you actually do it gets a little more complicated, but the answer is yes.
Any other comments or questions? Well, Dan, we really appreciate this. Was an item on the agenda, and thank you for coming and sharing that with us.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman.
Thank you.
How about now?
Bye-bye. Next item on the agenda is a few reports. One is Indigenous Peoples Day Initiative at the last meeting. Fernando, hi, bud. Is here.
I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, I'm joining late, and I'm going to be in and out. I'm dealing,
Okay,
with a
Bud,
family
we can't hear
medical
you.
issue.
Could you turn the volume up?
I'm dealing with a family medical issue, so
Oh, I'm
I'll be
sorry.
in and out, so.
Okay. all right. At our last meeting, Fernanda and Julie came and asked if the committee would help with the petition they were going to present to the select board on changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples' Day initiative. And a subcommittee was formed, and Cynthia and Marcus and I met with Julie and with Fernanda, and we gave them some suggestions and about what to do there. They're still at early stages of deciding what to do. But Cynthia, would you like to share a few things that you remember? I was at the meeting also about what their goals were and what actions we were thinking of taking.
Unfortunately, I'm away from home with a family situation here and I don't have
Oh,
my
I'm
notes. But one of the big things I thought was important is that we were, along with the diversity initiative, taking a consultative role with Fernanda and Julie, that they seem to have a sense of understanding of the situation of what they wanted to accomplish, that it's that changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples' Days was in a larger context of the desire to educate the community in a broader sense about Indigenous people, their place in our world, and how we can respond, and that they were wanting to listen to voices of Indigenous people. And also they've been consulting people around the state who've been involved and sometimes successful with bringing this as a petition or advocating for their town to take a position. So I did not get to the workshop at the summit. Perhaps Amelia or somebody else went to that workshop,
Yes, I
because
did.
that would give a sense of how people were responding to what they presented.
And one of the results of our meeting, we had a Zoom meeting, and we agreed to meet with. They formed a subcommittee. I think most of the people are from Needham Diversity Initiative, and we said that we would participate in some of the Zoom meetings to continue to give them suggestions. I did work with them for their workshop presentation. I also attended. They did a wonderful job, and I'm not taking any credit. And I'm very impressed with their commitment to working with Indigenous people and hearing their voice and using that. And they're not taking off on their own. They have done an extensive amount of research. It's very, very impressive. So any questions about that, Marlene?
I have a question and a comment. I think, if I'm correct, I just read, I think Newton just approved it, that they're going to go to Indigenous Peoples' Day. I'm pretty sure that's where it was. I just wanted to, and I think you sort of answered this, but I think that when they first went to the select board, they wanted more research, and they wanted them to, they had questions that needed to be answered before there could be any decisions. So it sounds like they're doing the research so that they're putting it together so they can take it back to the select board with all the information that they're going to need, which is, I think, great.
Yeah, and thank you, Katie. Katie shared some guidelines for them to follow in terms of what is necessary. Actually, they brought up the idea, not at a meeting, a town meeting, but the 15 minutes before, and they sort of presented their idea. So it wasn't a formal presentation, and that's what they're aiming for now. And they're following the guide. We shared the guidelines that Katie had shared with us from the select board, but things the policy and what kind of research they should do to make a case, and they're following that. So, any other questions? Yes, Katie?
Just curious if in that conversation, I know we had, one of the questions from the select board had been what other communities had done or various alternatives to, you know, if it's just changing the name, if it's creating multiple holidays, if there's recognition for Italian heritage some other way, just kind of options or what's worked in other communities. Did you get a sense that they were thinking through some of that?
Yes, absolutely. And that's their
Yeah.
next step.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay.
They
thank
showed
you.
a wonderful video at the presentation that sort of, I could share that with you in an email, but it was a very good presentation and good feedback too from the people that participated. Any other? Yeah, Cynthia?
Uh, Since I wasn't here at the present in October, I don't know if they told people about having gone to the superintendent of the Needham Public Schools, and that he was really receptive to the idea of that they might change on the school calendar. They have more freedom to do that, about naming it as Indigenous Peoples' Day, and that there was that they are invited to give a presentation to the school committee. So I just thought that would be another piece of information to add to what this group might want to know about what they're doing.
Great. Any other comments? Very quickly, just some feedback, the Needham Diversity Summit. Some of you were there. Your thoughts, reactions, Marlene?
It was the best one yet. I thought it was incredible. When I saw 12 to 5, I said, there's no way I'm going to make it through the whole day. And it was so engaging that even during the break, I watched the TED Talk. I sat and ate my lunch and watched the TED Talk. The presenters were incredible. The panel, I think because it felt even more intimate because it was right on your screen, I thought that was fantastic. And the keynote was great. Both my breakout rooms were unbelievable. It was well orchestrated. The technology worked. Everything was great. And I never really could get into the music that we had when we had it at Pollard. And I was so happy that there wasn't any of that music. Anyway, I thought it was great. You can leave that out of the minutes, Tina.
Any other reactions?
I'll agree with Marlene. Keynote speaker was just outstanding. I was really impressed by her, and so were the panels. Very impressive.
And a lot of credit still goes to David because this was organized last spring. I mean, we have been working on this since last year, and he had so many contacts, and he was so in touch with people that were leaders in the field, and it was through him that a lot of the people were invited to the summit. And we had a meeting last night. Cynthia and I were at an NDI meeting, and we're now planning the Martin Luther King event. And I think I'm just so pleased with the enthusiasm and people working together now as a team. We'll never replace David, but he's behind us. He's the wind in our
One more comment. It truly became interactive. Number of questions and comments that were coming. That was very impressive. Normally, in the different setting, you don't see that much interaction, but because of the Zoom and people were more open in making comments and asking questions and so on. So I really like that.
Great. And I think that'll be applied in the MLK Day as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see.
Amelia?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Yeah.
Cynthia?
I'm going to say, I totally agree with what people have said. And maybe this is just a personal kind of thing, that there was so much intensity to going. Usually you have time for one-on-ones and a kind of flow of things, but in a way that increases the impact. But I think, and I saw this starting to happen, that the going forward with the follow-up from what happened. And there was an evaluation form, but I think that we can learn more about how to help people as their understanding of things becomes more focused or deepened in this kind of experience. How to help people to become involved. And some of that was happening probably in the workshops. So that's another place I think we have for growth. And if people have experience with that and other kind of intense long, 4 or 5 hour things about how you help people to take next steps of action.
Just one other thing, Amelia. I got the evaluation in that follow-up email and I couldn't get into it. I clicked on it and there was no link there. So I'll try it again, but for me, I don't know if anyone else had a problem.
Anyone else? I didn't try.
Okay.
I'll mention something to Ramin. Nuwari, those of you, let's see, Marcus and Jen were at the Nuwari Planning Committee meeting. And but for those of you that can't attend, I know we're all on Zoom meetings almost every night of the week. But if you can't attend some of the meetings, it is televised on YouTube. It's accessible on YouTube. But anyway, Jen, and would you like to share a little bit about the last Nuwari meeting? Which was a week ago or more, or remember?
No, I think it was
It was
Yes.
Monday.
Monday.
Monday. That was a week ago.
Yes.
Wow.
So a couple things. I'll let you know kind of what we talked about for those that didn't get to see it. The working group is, I guess, has been charged with trying to put together some kind of equity vision statement for the town. The town brought in a facilitator. I was going to say a mediator because I've been talking about evictions all day, but it was a facilitator. And she was fantastic at getting a little bit more discussion going than have been in the last couple of meetings. I think if anybody has watched some of them, the last couple of meetings I think I've felt a little stilted. We haven't had a lot of discussion. So what we spent the entire session on was talking about how to put together a vision statement for the town. And I won't bore you through a lot of it, but it was in part kind of like the mechanics of doing a vision statement and also a substantive discussion about what kinds of things should be in it. And the idea was, or she was emphasizing that it was supposed to be something that was forward thinking, but that also, I guess the part of it is to come up with some kind of achievable goals that can be set by Nuwari. The next session is also going to be putting together this visioning statement. I believe that the plan is for the visioning statement to be done at this next meeting. And I will say, I mean, the process itself was really good. To be honest, I don't know how to say this exactly, but we only have, I think, about 10 meetings or so before we have to give a report to town meeting. And this feels like, I don't know, it's taking up a lot of time. And I'm afraid that Nuwari is not necessarily getting done what at least the feedback I'm hearing from community members about what they were hoping Nuwari was going to be doing right now. So I don't know, I can kind of envision this getting a little bit more complicated down the road, because I know, I don't know if the other Nuwari members are also hearing from people, but I'm hearing from community members who I think are looking for something more tangible to be coming out of this working group. And
Does Nuwari also follow under the select board, Jen?
yes,
It does. Okay.
group of the select board.
Thank you.
And so I don't know what happens after we do the visioning statement. I think that the investigation regarding Mr. Henry will be happening. I believe it's supposed to be by the end of the year. And my understanding is that the person that the town hired to do that investigation is also going through Needham policing policies generally to make some observations and suggestions. So perhaps that will bring an opportunity for some more of the kind of nitty gritty discussion that I think people were hoping for. I brought up the Article 17 at the last meeting. Not this one this past Monday, but the week before that, because I kind of left that town meeting where Article 17 passed.
Which is the
feeling
town equity report.
Yes, sorry, yes. The article that EJ and Equal Justice Needham organized around that, to me, that town meeting kind of left us with, I think, a mandate from the town that the residents really wanted to see something like that happen. And I don't know who pushes that into happening if it's not Newari, but I don't really know. I don't know how Newari will be tackling that right now. And I think I have also been contacted by some folks also from EJN about the 40B housing guidelines. And I know that housing is another piece that Newari was hoping to tackle, at least based on the survey that we did of members. So when, I think it might have been right after our first meeting, Katie had sent out a survey to all of the Newari members asking to kind of prioritize what they were hoping the committee was, or the working group was going to be able to look at. And I believe that housing, policing, and the schools were like the top three. I think some of the other items that we were, sorry, I'm just checking my notes. Some of the other big items had to do with diversity in elected positions and on the committees and boards in town, working with the businesses in town, and diversifying town staff. And I think neighbor interaction was also on the list. So I don't know, sorry, that was a long rambling report. There's a few people who have been giving me lots of feedback on it and expressing some frustration. I don't know if some of you have been able to watch it, if you have anything that you want to pass through me to the Newari. I think we're not meeting again until December. Sorry, it's early December. Basically, we're meeting twice a month up until the next town meeting. Does anybody have any questions, or has anybody been able to watch any of them and have anything that you want to share about it?
I do, but I there's something, I'll include that with a different topic.
Okay.
Any other comments? I'm kind of skipping around the agenda. I forgot to put in the agenda the over zero. We had our first rapid response meeting last week, and Marlene and Jen and I, who else, was anyone else at that meeting? Oh, and Cynthia, right. Would you like to share your thoughts about the meeting? This is conducted by Nicole over zero, and it was a morning meeting. Marlene?
I mean, I probably shouldn't say it because I was on the planning committee, but I thought it really went very, very well. They did have to end our last breakout room a little bit early, so we didn't get quite enough time, but except for Cynthia, I was in a group with people that I had never met, didn't know. And I thought all the information that was presented was really excellent. And I think the frames and the context that we're getting is really, really useful. So I thought it was really well done. I was pleased to see that everybody came back after the break, because I've been in meetings where, there's a lot of attrition, but I think that there's a commitment, which is really what we were looking for. And I was, happy to see that. But I'd love to hear from others of you who were not on the planning committee.
Cynthia or Jen?
Jen, go ahead.
I was just gonna to say it way exceeded my expectations about what could be accomplished on Zoom. I thought it was really engaging, even in the small breakout rooms, which sometimes can be a little bit awkward to kind of get settled. But I thought that they did a good job with coming up with questions that really got people talking quickly. And I thought it was just an amazing feat to get such a diverse group of people in the room, not just racially diverse or ethnically diverse, but also just kind of, some people from town government, some people from town clubs and civic organizations, residents. Like, it just seemed like the best effort that we have there, or the best results we've gotten to getting a group of people in the room who aren't always in the room. I think it's the closest we've come to expanding the choir. I thought it was really, really great in that way.
Cynthia, did you want to add?
I completely agree with what Jen has said, and Jen and I were also part of the expanded group, as was Amelia and Ashok and some other people. So I think it was actually better that we didn't have it in March, because there was more work that needed to be done before it could happen. And I know there's some people who can't come given the structure and their work, but I was pleasantly surprised to see the diversity. And as Marlene said, people stayed. And I thought that the content and the way it was done was fabulous. And it resonates on a national, international, as well as local level. And I heard at the end, I think it was Mo Handel who exclaimed something about, it being really, some kind of superlatives. And I saw 4 of the 5 select board members were there, the chief of police. A lot of the people we had thought were really important to have there were in attendance. And I'm really looking forward to what's going to happen. It feels like it is exactly the right thing we need to be doing right now.
And I agree, having participated as well. I thought the presenters did a fabulous job in explaining some very basic concepts. For example, what motivates people to behave the way they do, and really have a deeper understanding of how to understand where they're coming from. And then I guess the next step is, where do we go from there? But I want to get back to what Jen said. Is there something that Nuwari that we could bring to you to take to Nuwari? I think it was at that meeting where we discussed about where can people in the community come to share their voice, share their experiences. And this sort of leads us to the Human Rights Committee as a repository for discrimination complaints and recommendations to the select board. And I think that would be something, I don't know if it's been raised yet at Nuwari, but I think based on where we're going with the rapid response meeting. Marlene?
I think it came out from the panel at the summit, when all people were telling their stories, and people were putting into the chat, where can people go with their stories? And
right, sorry.
And I wished I could write in there and say, well, we have a Human Rights Committee, and that's what we do. We listen to complaints, but because we don't have that authority, I unfortunately couldn't write that, which was disappointing.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Cynthia?
I noticed that Katie is there to report later on, but I'm wondering if this would be an appropriate time for her to respond as our direct connection with the town manager. and town?
Happy to. I mean, I know that in your request letter to the select board, I don't know when it was, there was specific items that you wanted Newari to look at and specific items that you wanted to talk to the select board about for this group. You know, there was a lot of back and forth with Jen and Tina and the chair of the select board on those things. As far as I know, this particular issue did not come to a conclusion, so I don't really have any update more than that. But I guess I'd say if you want to follow up with Mo on that letter about that request, that, you know, then the committee should.
Thank you.
Any other comments? Another item on the agenda is the Lived Experiences Project and follow-up initiatives. I spoke today with Anna Geraldo Care, and she was at a human rights at Needham Diversity Initiative meeting yesterday and talked a little bit about it. And I spoke with her this afternoon because she is eager to join forces with other people in the community to carry this on, to move further. And she was interested in what the perspective is of the Human Rights Committee in supporting the next steps that they will take. And she sort of gave me an overview of where they're at and how this all came about. The first step was preparing a report, which was disseminated in the community. And then it was presented. The next step they took was after gathering all of the lived experiences stories and compiling them, they prepared a report. And then the next step was they met at a select board meeting. They made a presentation. And then they made a presentation at the summit last Sunday. And their next steps now, after this, is to share with other groups in the community about the experiences they are having. So, for example, ICON, the Indian community organization, or Latino, or the interfaith groups. And these are things that might be of interest to us, or that we may want to help them with. This is what they are seeking to do. So the first step they want to take is to share with other groups in the community the experiences of the project that they have, the initiative, and engage them. So gather more stories. The next step is to promote the report that has already been written. It is on the town hall website. And what they are looking for is someone to help with social media posting and to help them keep up their website. And then the third step, or the third step is funding suggestions, if we could give them any funding suggestions. And the fourth might be a presentation to the community. They did present at the Diversity Summit, but maybe a presentation that just focused on their work. And one of the things I asked about was what could be done in the schools, because I know they're interested in terms of other groups in the community. They're also interested in the school community. And I thought of Jared and Sophia. And if this was something that might be of interest to you, if you have a background in social media, for example, and helping them in some way, they would welcome your participation. How do you feel about that, Sophia and Jared?
Yeah, no, definitely. I do think, like, Sophie and I would be able to also, because, that's a lot of our generation, but yeah, I'd definitely be interested in that.
Sophia, what?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. So I'm willing to work with Jared on this and see what we can do.
Well, you would I have to speak with them because they're still developing plans, but they're developing a website. So it would be helpful to them to have someone who's younger and more knowledgeable about technology to work with them. Are there other, yeah, Marlene?
I just was wondering, I don't know if Pollard is doing Stay Day this year, but wouldn't that be a great place for them to present at Stay Day and to get the word out about what they're doing and to educate the Pollard kids?
Mhm. Are you talking about Anna or Jared and?
No, I'm talking about the lived experience, not Jared and Sophia, but
Okay.
you know, because they presented at the summit, and I mean I didn't go to that session,
Great
but
idea.
I think if they, Stay Day, you present like 4 times. If they're having Stay Day this year, I just think it would be really important to educate the students in our town about these stories of what people have lived through. And I think it's also based on the fact that I watched The Color. I listened to Richard Rothstein yesterday, who talked about The Color of Law, and he said we have to educate, we have to put it into the curriculum what we did in this country so that students know. So it's the same thing about these lived experiences. We have to tell the next generation, or it's gonna people won't know.
Cynthia.
Hey, I think it's wonderful that Sophia and Jared are possibly going to be able to help with technology and website. But when you first mentioned them, I thought in terms of them as communicators with the high school students, because that's certainly a group that has a lot of experiences for themselves and for maybe people in their family that could be part of what they're learning, of the lived experience projects. The other side is, of course, connecting with the curriculum, as Marlene said. But I think that we're just so fortunate to have Jared and Sophia that hopefully they would not just be offering their services as people who were younger and more maybe grew up knowing about computers, but also with the connections that both of them have and their understanding. So
I could share the report with all of you, but with Jared and Sophia, so you have an idea of what their findings were and what their goals are. And maybe that might be a way, might be a beginning for you to think about how to connect it to what is happening at the high school. And now, Jared, you shared some interesting information with me in an email about what you're doing on Courageous Conversations on Race. You want to share some of that?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, like, I did talk to like the group in one of our meetings about like making a video, like more with personal opinions, like about like what like racism means to them for the middle schoolers because of that incident with like the Zoom bombings. And then also I know what I mentioned in that email was that they are trying to have like a banner or something too, like to have people in the school kind of like write what they're like what they hope to see in our school. That could be anything, but like it's a bunch of CCOR students. So their hope is like, just saying kind of like their like, hopes and like whatever for the school to be like a more inviting place kind of. But in terms of video, yeah, they're definitely interested in doing things with the middle school students.
And you mentioned you might connect with Beth Penal.
Yeah, I did ask her about it, and she said she would definitely help with that.
So that would be a great, that would be different from lived experiences, but yes, and that's originally what we had talked about as a project for you. Sophia, what are your thoughts?
I think talking with the middle schoolers is probably a good idea, just because like I think it's important to kind of get these messages out to like the younger children, so they could work on, I guess, also teaching, their parents too. Since I know when I was in middle school, I was talking a lot to my parents about, things that I was passionate about in school, and a lot of that happened to be sort of social justice-esque topics. So I feel like definitely connecting with the younger students, like the ones that Jared works with, could be really beneficial.
Does anyone have any suggestions for how they might proceed other than the initiatives they have taken? Beth certainly is a good resource, and she would definitely be supportive. Tina?
Just on the website stuff, I have a lot of experience with that just because that's my business. So the more technical things, search engine optimization, user experience, how to organize a nav bar, I'm happy to talk to them about that.
That's great. Okay. So the next step would be to develop a plan together with Beth, Sophia, and Jared for a video. And how can we be of help to you, the committee? Certainly we can help you move that forward as well. Do you want to take some, make some initiatives, have a conference with, conversation with Beth, and then get back to us and see how we can support you?
Yeah, I can reach out to Beth as well as like 3 other advisors for that. And definitely, I'll add Sophia in that email. Hopefully we can get like a Zoom call or something like that to see, because there were a good amount of students that said that they would be interested, and also probably more that would want to help out in some way, even if they're not like doing a big part, but just, small parts.
But you would need some expertise in creating the video, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I
Harry,
know they've created videos before,
right?
and they do have a CCOR video that's, I think, more about like, I don't know, it's more like introductory to like what they do. With this, I think the idea for this is more coming from like personal experience, like rather than like, this is how I feel, but this is like what's happened to me, to show, middle school students like how racism affects others.
I saw the video, the CCR video, which was excellent. Was that done by the students, or was there a teacher who worked on that? Do you know?
Yeah, I think that was, it was last year, and I'm pretty sure it was, the idea came from maybe some students, but like the advisors definitely helped them with that, because it's also like, a newer group. So it's definitely things that they're doing now are like from, their experiences last year, being able to see what works and what doesn't. So it's definitely was the advisors. So that
It's
they
a
would be
really
able to-
well, I thought it was a very well done video. So whoever helped them do that video would be great if they could work with you.
How did you access the video? Where can we see it?
Oh, I went to the workshop at the Diversity Summit where they presented. And that's where I saw it.
Amelia, we were sent I think it was at NDI, some group I'm on last year, before it was shown to the faculty group, but it hadn't been shown to the entire student body. And so it was sent out to a small group, and I can't remember whether it was the clergy group, some group I'm on there. So I know Beth Finals has a link, and maybe if somebody from NHRC asks her, I'm sure that at this point it's been shown so much that NHRC group would be welcome to see it. I think that will be very helpful. It was excellent.
Sophia and Jared, could you contact Beth and ask her to send me the link? And then I could share it with the other members.
Yeah, I can email her.
And Carrie, we think of you as the tech mom, tech expert. Could you give them some suggestions as they move forward?
Yeah, I would be happy to help.
Your
them.
area of expertise?
For sure. Of
Okay,
course.
great. Yeah, and thank you, Carrie, so much for posting everything on our website. in a flash.
Easy peasy.
I think we've covered all of the main things except one important, and one thing before we conclude with our discussion. I made a mistake on the announcements. At my Neighbors Table series, the next event sounds really super. And I said it was December 6th, it's December 13th. And as soon as we get our flyer together, I'll send it out to you, but it's December 13th.
Amelia?
Yeah.
There is Ross Donald in the attendees with his hand up. I just wanted to flag it in case you wanted me to bring him over.
Sure. Okay.
He should be over shortly.
Hello, Ross. Ross, would you like to introduce yourself and unmute, please? Tell us who you are.
I can move him back and see if, oh, there he is.
There. Hello, Ross. Could you
Hi.
unmute, please? Yes.
Yes, I think I have. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, well, this is kind of unexpected. I was at another meeting, but wanted to try and keep up on the work that you have taken on, especially regarding the issues of discrimination, racial issues, and so forth. I live at the Housing Authority. I've been here 10 years, and I've tried to, this is perfect, in the sense that I've tried to get to their meetings and have been kind of denied access. Access might be a key word, but finding that what's happening at the Housing Authority appears, and I really shouldn't cite any numbers, but something like 25% of the lowest income population is housed at Housing Authority property. And we have probably some significant, I don't know, we've got Chinese Americans, Ukrainian, Russian Americans, Blacks, and so forth, and in a significant population. So we're like, we're beyond a microcosm, you know, we're sort of more extreme as far as the numbers represented. If you want diversity, we've got it, you know? So the Housing Authority property population, I believe, should be a focus of attention. There's been active discrimination in the past 5 or 10 years. I've been here 10 years, and I never got the whole story. And I remember talking to a few people that are on this in this gallery here at the time. Was it an issue? Was it a human rights issue? When it just appears to be sort of modern day Jim Crow laws, rules, and regulations that are denying the participation of the residents. Even under our interpretation of the law, doesn't make any difference, even if we're right. You know, we have, I think the issues should be discussed as far as the incident at CVS and all the other issues, equal justice and so forth. The housing authorities adopt a position, if they want to be just, if they want to be fair, the model they've adopted is punishment. You know, they're going to make things right by punishing the residents rather than restoring some sort of, there has been a history, even in the housing authority, of where there's been good feeling. When the veterans returned, they created housing for them, welcoming the veterans home, I suppose, in some way. There's none of that good feeling now. Half of that housing is gone, and they've got a second part of the plan, which is the single family detached housing there under the trees and so forth. It's wonderful. It's good planning, but there's something about good planning, like the cluster housing at Linden Street. It attracts attention, but the attention that attracts seems to want to destroy it. You know, the incidents on Melnia Cass Boulevard, where they're cutting down the trees in order to somehow create open space, just doesn't make sense. But that in fact is happening at the housing authority. when a few people objected to the landscaping plans, which amounted to pulling out rose bushes and some of the specimen plantings that are there from the beginning. Since 1959 and 60, they're pulling out the plants there and cutting the trees down. So, and when you object to it, what did they do when I objected to it? They moved to evict me. I think that's called retaliation. Does that mean anything? It certainly affected me. I have what I've diagnosed with some counselors' help is a situational depression. It's oppressive. You know, we can't even get to first base. Nature is supposed to be nurturing. And what do they do when they destroy it? It certainly affects me badly, you know, but so you asked me what I thought. So there's a beginning.
There are responses from other members of the committee.
Not that I expect a response, you know. This is an emotional issue for me. I had meetings set up. I'm interested under, Trevor, what's his name, Ballantyne at Needham Times, trying to get access to information. When they set about to destroy it, it took Denise Garlick to come to a board meeting to say, what's going on? You're proposing to destroy this information when there's been issues in the past haven't been resolved. The murder case was canceled because one of the attorneys got sick or got pregnant or something, but that case hasn't been resolved, you know?
Ross,
not that we need to resolve it.
What
Maybe we'll just forget it. Just let it go.
What would the Human Rights Committee? What could we do?
You've already done it. You've allowed me to vent a little bit. Listen, take it for what it's worth. You know, I've been here 10 years. There's a person in the first floor that's been here 30 years, and he's been damaged by the actions of the housing authority, if you believe half of what he said.
Well, we welcome you to stay in touch with us and communicate with us further. We have other things on the agenda today, but thank you for sharing your point of view.
Well, I might have been a little bit more diplomatic and prepared. I usually go by notes and have some kind of an agenda. So you kind of caught me off guard, and maybe that's a good thing. You know, a little bit more spontaneity. If this is authentic, I don't know, take it for what it's worth. You know.
Thank you for your
Thank
comment.
you.
Thank you for sharing, Ross.
Well, the last item I saved, so we have uninterrupted time, is the selection of the next chair, or where do we go from here? We have several variable. We had Jen sent an email about what an option might be for maybe we need a break before we continue. Your suggestion was perhaps having a shared experience at our December meeting. And we would identify what that was in terms of, I think Marlene had suggested a video, Code of Law. Was that the video that you were?
Color of Law.
Color of Law, I'm sorry, Color of Law, or have some experience. For example, and thank you, Bud, for sharing the information about let me see. The State of Race series at WGBH and the Boston Globe. Thank you so much, Bud, for sharing that information. And it is being presented right now as we speak, but it will be on YouTube, and that it will be available, I think, in 24 hours. So I strongly recommend it. It's in the agenda. It's one of the items. You could get further information about that, but that might be another possibility. Or I don't know. What do you think? First of all, I'm stepping down today as acting chair, and we need someone to facilitate what happens in December or January. So where do we go from here? Are there some people that would be willing to take on that role with the help, with support from other people on the committee? But my role has been, maybe I should share a little bit of what I did as the acting chair. And that is develop the agenda for the meeting and being in touch with other members, or they're being in touch with me because I was the acting chair, and gathering information to prepare the committee for discussion at the meeting. That is, I don't think it's that time consuming. You do that over the course of a month. This is not something you do the night before or a week before. And I think that is something that is doable. I know many people don't want to take on a full-time position as a co-chair or a chair. That is a very demanding role if you assume all of the responsibilities. But right now, we need someone to be an acting chair to facilitate or take a lead role in the next. So what are your thoughts about what about a team approach? I know everyone is busy. Some of you, I'm so sorry, Bud and Cynthia, you're dealing with medical issues in your family. Everybody has a lot going on in their lives right now. So how could we maybe approach this as a team and collaborate with one another just to get through the next couple of months until we can get a full-time chair or co-chairs? What thoughts do you have?
I totally welcome the idea of sort of taking it on as a joint effort. I've expressed to all of you, I wish it was something I could take on right now, but honestly, with my full-time job as the director of IT at a school right now, with COVID going on, and I mean, it's just all consuming, and on top of, obviously, like all of us, my family and all that kind of stuff. So however, I'd be willing to share some of the responsibilities and help out with things. I certainly can't own it, and I know others are sort of faced with similar. So if it's a matter of sort of sharing responsibilities and trying to help out to keep the committee going until we figure things out, I'm totally open to that.
Tina?
So if we end up, this is a really busy time for me as well, obviously, with in retail. But come January, things are going to slow down for me. So Carrie, if you're willing to sort of pitch in with me, I could probably handle January, February, and March until it starts to get really busy again here at the shop.
And one of what I found very helpful was that Jen and Katie were communicating with me. Jen is the, I guess, liaison to Katie, to the select board. Any information that needs to be discussed at the meetings, they share with me so we can get that on the agenda. And that was very helpful. So I wasn't out searching for topics to include in the agenda. And then with all the meetings, Cynthia is an incredible resource. She belongs to all of these, or she wears many hats, keeps me informed, keeps all of us informed about issues, about events. Marlene is chairing, I don't know how many groups, sharing information. So there's so much input. I mean, I think we're already operating as a team. I know Julie said that she would also be interested in helping. She can't take on the total. Well, none of us can at this point, but I think that would make sense. And we certainly, and we could help with things like, I mean, I wouldn't mind, I could send the agenda. Some of these are time consuming. For example, sending the agenda and the minutes to Kate and Sandy Sincata. Just having that. If you've done it before, you can do it quickly, and that could relieve the acting chair of some of the nitty gritty kinds of things and help them focus on the agenda.
Honestly, as long as I have a checklist, it shouldn't be a problem.
There are other thoughts. What do other people think?
I think that's great. You've got two people who stepped up, who said they're willing to take on some of the responsibility in the short term. I think that's
actually
wonderful.
3, because Julie said she could not make it tonight, but she said also that she would be willing to take on.
And I'm happy. I think, can you hear me?
Yeah, barely.
Yeah,
Bud.
because I was told earlier, there was a problem with my microphone on my computer. I'm happy to like help run a meeting. I mean, putting the agenda together and stuff, I think appear with what I have going on at this point would be overbearing. But if someone says, gee, I don't want to run the meeting, but you know, I've got the meeting all organized. I'd like someone to kind of chair it and moderate, and I'd be happy to do that. But I don't know if that would be a meaningful piece.
That certainly would, Bud. I think because your voice is important and you have interests that you could bring, for example, the video, the series that I knew nothing about. And so I think we all have something to offer. And maybe Sophia and Jared could help with the meetings, you know, with taking a piece of the meeting and maybe having that part of the discussion. That would help as well. What do you think, Sophia and Jared? We would help you.
I think I would be, yeah, I would be okay with helping.
Jared?
Yeah, me too. As long as, you know, get some help with that.
Well, what about the December meeting? What do we want to do? Do we want to have, should we, I mean, we're doing so many things. So many of us are in subgroups, subcommittee groups, and so that we're out there gathering information and doing the work of the Human Rights Committee. And so we have
Do we need a December meeting?
I'm sorry. Do we
need a December meeting?
I don't know. What do others think?
There's so many things going on. I actually had 3 meetings that I was supposed to be at tonight. So it gets crazy this time of year.
I mean, I kind of like the idea of kind of feeding ourselves, educating ourselves, and the idea of just having sort of an educational program just for us in December. You know, if other people were interested, or if that's not how you want to use your time, I think we need to have a consensus if that's what people want or not.
Cynthia?
I think it was Jen who brought up that idea, and this was Marlene is mentioning it. I think that would be really good, and if we could choose an area that's really important to the Human Rights Committee and would advance our understanding and ability to take action. And there are a whole lot of areas that are interesting, like the color of law, but those events are actually happening in the community that we could go to. Something that jumps out at me is you've said the repository for discrimination complaints. I wondered if we had a time, and it might be partly hearing from people like Marlene, who's in her role in another commission in a city, saw that kind of thing happening. Because if we're saying that's something we feel is really important for the Human Rights Committee to do, I think we should really know more about what that means, or what some of the ways that has been done in other towns or cities. So it just occurred to me that that's an area that it's not just a common thing that a lot of the town is concerned about. It's something unique, possibly unique, that we might be, that we propose that we do, but I'm not even sure what that would look like for us to do. So that's just jumped out at me as an area that we could benefit from spending time on.
So would you suggest that we have a guest speaker or someone come to, Marlene, do you know of any, or does anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably for the complaint process, we could probably have someone, I mean, I don't know if the people would be available. I was thinking about I think the Cambridge Human Rights Commission really was doing it really well. But they're at a different level, I think, than we would be, because they hear complaints that MCAD doesn't hear, Mass Commission Against Discrimination. Right. I mean, so they're at a different level. Because so I, was involved in those, and then also in Arlington, where we had a whole protocol. So, I mean, it's possible to invite someone, and I'm sure there are the other commissions have protocols also and I think Cynthia's idea of having someone come and explain it to us is a really good idea, and sort of what their protocol is. But I guess I'm wondering, does it make sense to spend our time doing that if in fact the select board doesn't think that's something we should do? Will it just be frustrating? Should we wait for some sign from the select board? I'm just wondering. Jenna's laughing.
But do we know what it is we're getting into? So if we're pushing for this, you have a sense, Marlene, because you've done it. But I start to think about what would it mean? What sort of training do we need? Where's the boundary between police things or Mass Commission on Discrimination? So it's, I guess, a chicken and egg kind of thing. We could wait for them to say you can do it, and they say, oh, whoops, what are we going to do? Or we can get into it and then feel bad that it didn't come to pass. But it's just a thought if we're looking for how to spend the time. Instead of just going, we have lots of really important things that we're involved with, but it's just an idea.
I think it's an interesting idea.
And
It's a great
thing
idea
about
too. I guess I'm
Zoom
wondering.
The thing about Zoom is it's probably easier to get a speaker to come on for a half an hour or 45 minutes rather than having to travel. So if we can come up with a topic and a person, that's one thing that, makes it a lot easier to find someone.
And that would be done during our meeting time, our regular meeting time. So Jen?
The only thing I was thinking of it being kind of like a break month for us, I think that it may not be that hard to find somebody, but it also might be kind of hard for somebody. So I don't know if, given what everybody is saying right now about what their next 6 weeks look like, if it's realistic to think that anybody has the time to do that kind of digging. I do think it would be really good to hear. And I think, Cynthia, I think to your point, if the select board was to come back to us and say, what would you want this to look like what we're actually proposing, I think it would be great if we had a model that we thought made sense to try to propose, since we're not at Cambridge. Are we more like Arlington, or if there's some other model out there that would work for us. So I guess, I think that to me sounds like a great idea, but it sounds like there would be a lot of homework to pull that off. And it felt like that people were saying that they didn't really have the time to do that kind of work in the next, 6 weeks or so. So maybe this is a time where we can, hit the easy button for ourselves for December and either, work with something that already exists, but that would be a good basis for us to just have some good conversation, or skip the December meeting altogether, because it doesn't sound like anybody can do December. Am I hearing that wrong?
Ashok, we haven't heard from you. What do you think?
I'm really getting zoomed out. I'm spending like 8 to 10 hours in front of monitors. So I don't mind taking a break and, just self-educating myself. And that I attended the Newton event where they talked about the color of law. And that was fantastic. I would really like to spend more time and learn more about that. And maybe some of the things which Dan Matthews talked about will make more sense to me, because I'm pretty ignorant about those housing laws and so on.
So it sounds like we want to take a break, and we have done that before. We have, I don't want to say cancel, but not scheduled a meeting. And our next meeting would be in January. And in the meantime, we could be thinking about where we go from there. And we have some volunteers that we could help you with developing the January agenda and what we want to do and think of ideas.
And I'm willing to reach out to my friend, Colette Phillips, who may have some ideas for some speakers.
If you could, I mean, I don't mind if you want to send it to me and then I could compile that. So if any of you have ideas, send it to me and then I could share it with the rest of the group for what we could do as a shared experience, a learning experience.
And, you know, not right now, but I'm happy to try to find someone to come and talk about the complaint process. I actually think we used to, didn't we? You found the document, didn't you, Amelia?
Yes, I did. And I sent it, but I could send it again. When
Yeah,
we're
and the Human Rights Committee in Needham used to have a complaint process, and we used to be able to help people who had complaints, like that man, that Ross McDonald who came on. If he filed a formal complaint, we would understand really what it was he wanted and needed. You know, he said it was sort of a catharsis for him, I think, tonight. But if, you know, if there's a form that, you know, that can be filed, and we could talk about that, and then a whole process that you go through. Then we could see if we actually have the bandwidth within this committee to do that.
Yep.
We may or may not, because, you know, you need some leadership to be able to do that. But I'd be happy to, like, after the first of the year, maybe, if things
My
slow down.
concern is just, even if we have the bandwidth, do we have the authority? And that's, I think, what we're.
That's also, yeah, but if we don't know enough about it, I think Cynthia had made a really good point. You know, are we going to go to the select board and say we want to do this, when in fact, probably I'm the only one in the committee who really knows what that means. So.
Mhm.
Well, sure. Yeah, Cynthia?
I wonder if we could agree as a committee that we would have this as a topic, either, let's say, January or February. Not that it takes over the whole meeting, but to have a significant amount of time. So that
Repository.
about the learning more about how in the past the committee had handled complaint processes and what kind of structures there are in other towns. That doesn't necessarily mean inviting somebody. So I'm proposing something different now than the idea of having a whole meeting around it, but to say, to have maybe 15 or 20 minutes or a significant amount of time so that we're educating ourselves, and perhaps coming out of that would be presentation for Newari or for the town saying, here's from a long time ago, an example of how the complaint process worked. Here's how it has is taking place in some towns that are somewhat comparable to Needham. So as you were thinking about whether to give us authority to do this, here's some more background. And it may be, as we hear it, we say, hey, we don't have enough people, or we need the training, that we may get really excited about it and say, we see how this could be us, could be an important part of what we do. Or we might say, this isn't what, we don't have the resources for this right now. I think it could be both a learning, testing out of what we can do, and a background for presenting it to the town.
Do others agree? Because we have to. So.
Yes.
Okay. I want to end almost on time. One more person that we always get to at the end, and that's Belinda. And Belinda, a report from what's happening during this COVID virus resistance in town. Any reports from the police department? Are you
No, I have
encountering any resistance?
No, nothing to report. And all officers in their cruisers, they have bags of masks. So if we do encounter someone without a mask, we give them one. So that's what we're doing with the COVID right now.
Any other things you'd like to share with us happening around town?
There's nothing new.
No discrimination cases or?
No,
Is there anything? Okay.
no.
Well, nice to see everyone again.
So did we make a decision? We're canceling December? Is that what I heard? I just want to.
Yes, should we vote on
Do
that?
we need a motion for that or not?
Oh, I think we should have a motion.
Yeah,
I move that
good
we,
idea.
cancel the December meeting.
Does anyone second the motion?
Second,
I second.
Okay, I'll do a roll call. Tina,
Yes.
Sophia,
Yes.
Cynthia,
Yes,
Jen,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Amelia, yes. Belinda,
Yes.
Ashok,
Yes.
Resounding,
Jared?
yes, right?
Yes.
Bud,
Yes.
Marlene,
yes,
and Katie.
she doesn't vote.
A non-official, yes.
She wants to-
Well, I will
Get the night off,
notify
Katie.
the town manager that the December, so they could post it online, that there will not be a
I think
meeting.
not the town manager. You want to just let Sandy know.
Well, whenever in the past, I've always sent minutes and agendas to Sandy, her assistant, and town manager.
Not to Teddy?
no, that's
I
the
al-
town
I always
clerk.
sent the minutes to Teddy. That's interesting.
No, I'm used to doing it. Isn't that what you've been doing, Jen?
That's what we had been doing.
Okay,
I think I sent it to everybody you said and Teddy. I think everybody was getting them.
anyway, it's.
As long as you get Sandy and myself, you're fine. We'll figure it out on our end.
Okay,
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving,
happy
everyone.
Thanksgiving, everyone, and
Enjoy
Bud
your
and
Cornish hens.
Cynthia, good luck with your family, medical issues.
Yeah,
and everything
my,
else.
my family isn't ill. It's just their nanny was ill and they tested negative for COVID. So we've entered in to see our lovely grandchildren and we're hoping would come out okay. And can we thank Amelia for jumping in to do the acting chair? It gave us a platform to continue to exist and flourish. Just thank you, thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you, everyone. We're
Thank
a team.
you.
We're still a team. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank
Thank
you all.
you.
Happy
Thank you.
Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Take
Good
care.
night.